Now, a government review of $120 billion in future infrastructure projects has been driven by the rising price of labour and raw materials, apart from other things, similar to the pressure that's seen scores of construction companies collapse. The problem is that a rapidly rising population puts pressure on all of our infrastructure. So let's bring in here Romilly Madew, the Chief Executive of the Engineers Australia. They have to build the infrastructure. She's also the former CEO of Infrastructure Australia, which puts the priority list together. Romilly, many thanks for your time as always. Is this simply a government reprioritising infrastructure, or are there genuine pressures in there that means some of those projects that you've earmarked simply can't be built now?
Firstly, it really is a significant and appropriate announcement today, and it's one that needed to be done. If we consider the changes post-COVID, the increase in the number of pipeline infrastructure projects in the pipeline had significantly increased already. Add on that skill shortages and material cost increases of 24% over the last 12 months, you have a pipeline that's under pressure. So what that means is you also then have the states and territories all competing for the same skills and the same material. So the announcement is right. It is needed to just work out a stable pipeline that responds to the, that is outcomes focused and that is also value for money for the Australian taxpayer. We can see the economy has significantly changed in the last 2 years. So it really is responding to a number of challenges, and it is the right time to be reconsidering the pipeline.
OK, so Romilly, in your statement today, you've said it will be important to give due consideration to changing consumer behaviour and economic priorities. What do you mean by changing consumer priorities?
So consumer behaviour, firstly, is if you think about COVID, there's been a change in the way of how we move about, how we purchase goods and services. So there was an increase in what we bought online. There was an increase in how we decided to purchase through our local communities. And then if you look at also our travel behaviours and our other behaviours, but also the time, if you look at our congestion patterns, they are changing. We've moved back to the car instead of using public transport. So that's taking on consumer behaviours. On the economic front, what Engineers Australia is asking for is also consider what the government has committed when we look at a clean energy transition, taking that into account into the pipeline, because you've got the infrastructure pipeline, defence announcements, plus an energy transition, and they're all putting pressure on each other's pipeline.
But isn't there a situation, and I noticed, say, the Australian Constructors Association today said construction currently accounts for 26% of all business insolvencies. So the issue here is it's not only just reprioritising, but whether you can actually physically get these projects built, given the pressure it's putting on other parts of the economy, because there are no workers and the prices of many projects have gone up. And in fact, there's simply fewer construction businesses out there to achieve it.
So there's a couple of points in what you've just raised. A lot of the construction companies that have gone under are home building and home construction companies. There have been commercial ones as well. They also made contracts pre-COVID or during COVID, and as we can see, skill shortage and price increases have escalated. So that has put a lot of pressure on those contracts. Add on that, we need to slow our pipeline down. It's called smoothing the pipeline, to make sure that we can build what we want to build, but we're taking these escalation pressures off. So by smoothing the pipeline, we do have the skills to share around these projects, whether they're residential projects or commercial projects, and then we also have the materials that we can build them. At the moment, they're all just meshing into each other and creating these problems, which then is putting these pressure on the construction industry.
But is this any time to slow down the rolling out of infrastructure, given the fact that we are steadily heading to the best part of 30 million people here in Australia, an extra 400,000 people this year alone? Is this really the time to stop the pipeline, to slow it down, to smooth it out, as you say?
It's not stopping or slowing, it is smoothing. If you don't smooth the pipeline, these escalations in cost and the skill shortage will continue. So your projects will cost more, and they'll take longer to build. So it is actually trying to stabilise and support the economy than heating up the economy and putting pressure on the economy.
OK, so very quickly, of this proportion, the big number, how many really do you think are going to go ahead? What proportion?
That really is a conversation between the states and the federal government aligned with economic outcomes and policy directions. And it's those projects that will bring the biggest benefit to the Australian community and the biggest benefit to the economy. And they're the ones that why this 90-day review is being undertaken, to ensure that the projects that are key and highlighted on the pipeline are the ones that will bring the biggest returns and value to the Australian public and the economy.